They refused to promote me because I'm just a waitress. Then Forbes Magazine called What If Your Own Sister's Betrayal Became the Turning Point That Changed Your Entire Life. Hey, my name is Margaret Wilson. I stood there, tray balanced on one hand, the clinking of glasses and chatter of the upscale restaurant swirling around me like a storm I couldn't escape. My apron was stained with a faint smear of red wine from table 12, and my feet ached from hours of weaving between tables. But none of that hurt as much as the words I'd just overheard. Margaret. Promote her. She's just a waitress. The voice belonged to Mr. Hargrove, the restaurant manager, his tone dripping with dismissal as he spoke to my sister, Clara, in the back office. Clara, my own sister, who'd climbed the ranks to assistant manager, a sharp cutting sound that pierced deeper than any insult I'd ever heard. I never thought I'd be betrayed by someone I loved, especially not in front of so many people. The door to the office was cracked open, and a few of the other servers glanced my way, their pitying looks worse than the words themselves. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the polished wood floor and never resurface. Instead, I tightened my grip on the tray, forced a smile, and delivered the plates to table 7. Enjoy your meal, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Clara and I had always been close. Growing up, we'd shared secrets under the covers, giggling late into the night. She was the one who'd encouraged me to take this job 3 years ago, promising it was just a stepping stone. You're smarter than most of the people here, Margaret, she'd said. You'll move up in no time. I believed her. I worked harder than anyone, memorizing every menu detail, charming even the grumpiest customers, staying late to help close. I thought I was proving myself, but now, hearing her laugh at the idea of my promotion, I realized I'd been naive. Her betrayal wasn't just a moment, it was a revelation of how she truly saw me, less than invisible. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. I moved mechanically, refilling water glasses, clearing plates, nodding at customers' complaints, but inside, I was unraveling. Every time I passed the office, I could feel Clara's presence like a weight pressing on my chest. Had she always thought of me this way? Was I just the little sister who'd never measure up? The questions gnawed at me, each one sharper than the last. By the time I clocked out, the restaurant was quiet. The last patrons gone. I stood in the alley behind the building, the cool night air biting at my skin. My hands trembled as I untied my apron. I could still hear Mr. Hargrove's voice, Clara's laugh, the pity in my coworkers' eyes. As I stood there, feeling invisible, I realized I had a choice. I could continue to let this define me, let their words, their betrayal, keep me smaller. I could choose to change everything. But how? I wasn't sure. All I knew was that something inside me had shifted, a spark of defiance flickering in the darkness. I didn't know how it would unfold, but one thing was clear. My life would never be the same again. Will I choose to stay silent, or will I take control of my own story? The next morning, I woke up with Clara's laugh still echoing in my head. It wasn't just the sound, it was the weight of it, the way it carried years of moments I'd brushed off, ignored, or buried. I sat on the edge of my bed in my tiny apartment, the morning light filtering through the cracked blinds, and stared at the faded photo of Clara and me on my nightstand. We were kids then, arms slung around each other, grinning at some long-forgotten summer fair. I used to think we were unbreakable. Now, I wasn't so sure. I made coffee, the routine grounding me as I replayed the previous night. Just a waitress. The words stung, but what hurt more were the smaller betrayals I'd let slide over the years. The ones I'd told myself didn't matter. Like the time Clara forgot to tell me about the staff meeting where promotions were discussed, saying it slipped her mind because she was so busy, or the way she'd casually dismiss my ideas for improving the restaurant's workflow, smiling that tight smile of hers before changing the subject. I'd always excused it. She's stressed. She's my sister. She doesn't mean it. But now, those moments felt like tiny cuts, each one leaving a scar I hadn't noticed until they all started to ache at once. I carried my coffee to the window, looking out at the city waking up below. The street was alive with delivery trucks and early commuters, but I felt detached, like I was watching someone else's life. I thought about the other servers who'd overheard Mr. Hargrove and Clara. They hadn't said anything, but their glances told me enough. Pity, sympathy, maybe even a little relief that it wasn't them. I wondered if they saw me the way Clara did, just a waitress, someone who'd never be more than a name on a schedule. The truth was, I'd started to believe it too. 3 years at the restaurant, pouring my heart into every shift, and what did I have to show for it? A paycheck that barely covered rent, sore feet, and a sister who laughed at the idea of me moving up. I'd let myself shrink, convincing myself that being good at my job was enough. But good wasn't enough when the people closest to you didn't see your worth. I'd thought about confronting Clara. The idea made my stomach twist. What would I even say? Why did you laugh? Why do you think so little of me? I imagined her, brushing it off, saying I was overreacting, that it was just a joke. But it wasn't a joke. It was a window into something deeper, something I'd been too afraid to face. Clara wasn't just my sister, she was a mirror of all the doubts I'd carried about myself. And those doubts had roots that went further. Back then last night, there was the time in high school when I'd wanted to apply for a scholarship to culinary school. I'd spent weeks researching, dreaming of becoming a chef, creating dishes that could tell a story. Clara had been the one to talk me out of it. You're not cut out for that pressure, Margaret, she'd said, her voice gentle but firm. Stick to something safe. I listened. I always listened. And now, here I was, safe and stuck, my dreams buried under years of just a waitress. I set my coffee down, my hands shaking. I couldn't keep doing this pretending the cuts didn't hurt, pretending I was okay with being invisible. But confronting Clara, confronting the past, felt like stepping into a fire. Could I face her and the truth of what her betrayal meant? Or would I keep burying the pain, letting it fester until it consumed me? Can I confront the hidden wounds, or will they remain buried forever? The air in my apartment felt heavy that evening, like it was holding my breath for me. I sat at my small kitchen table, a notebook open in front of me, the pages blank except for a single word I'd scrawled. Enough. Clara's laugh still echoed in my mind, mingling with the memory of every slight. Every dismissal, every moment I'd let myself believe I was less than. I was done. Done with being invisible, done with letting other people write my story. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of something fiercer, determination to take control of my life. No matter how terrifying it seemed. I hadn't spoken to Clara since that night at the restaurant. She'd texted me the next day, a casual "you, okay?" As if nothing had happened. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Not yet. Every time I thought about facing her, my chest tightened, and I saw her laughing again. Her voice blending with Mr. Hargrove's dismissive tone. But the longer I sat with the hurt, the more I realized that staying silent wasn't protecting me, was trapping me. If I wanted to change, I had to move. I had to act. I started small. I pulled up the restaurant's employee handbook on my phone, something I'd skimmed when I was hired but never really studied. There it was, in black and white. The criteria for promotion to assistant manager: 3 years of service, check. Consistent performance reviews, check. Leadership skills, demonstrated through initiative and teamwork. I thought of the nights I'd stayed late to train new servers, the times I'd smoothed over customer complaints. With a smile, the suggestions I'd made to streamline service, suggestions Clara had ignored. I wasn't just a waitress. I'd been leading, even if no one noticed. But they would notice. I decided then and there to apply for the assistant manager position, even if it meant going over Clara's head. The restaurant chain had a regional office, and I could submit my application directly to them. It felt like a betrayal of my own, a secret move against my sister, but hadn't she betrayed me first? I opened my laptop, my fingers trembling as I started drafting the application. Every word felt like a step into the unknown. My name is Margaret Wilson, and I believe I'm ready to take on a leadership role. The sentence stared back at me, bold and unfamiliar. Was I ready? Doubt crept in, whispering that I was overreaching, that Clara and Mr. Hargrove were right. I pushed it down. Doubt had kept me small for too long. I thought about what it would mean to confront Clara, to stand in front of her and demand to be seen. The idea made my heart race. She'd always been the confident one, the one who knew how to navigate the world while I followed in her shadow. But shadows only exist where there's light, and I was tired of dimming mine to make hers brighter. I didn't know if I'd have the courage to face her directly, but submitting that application felt like the first real step toward reclaiming my voice. As I hit send on the application, my phone buzzed. Another text from Clara. "We need to talk, Mags." My stomach twisted. Did she know what I'd just done? Or was this about something else, another meeting I'd been forgotten about, another chance to keep me in my place? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. I could ignore her, keep my plan secret, and let the application speak for itself. Or I could face her now. before I was ready, and risk crumbling under the weight of her judgment? Can I find the courage to change my life, or will I hesitate when it matters most? The restaurant was quieter than usual that Tuesday, the lunch rush, barely a trickle. I moved through my shift with a new kind of focus, my mind not on the orders or the tips but on the plan taking shape inside me. Sending that application to the regional office had been like lighting a match. Now I had to decide how to let it burn. Clara's text, "We need to talk." Mags, still sat unanswered on my phone. I wasn't ready to face her, not until I had something concrete. Something that would force her to see me as more than the sister she could laugh off. I started plotting in the margins of my notebook, scribbling ideas during my breaks in the cramped staff room. If I was going to make them take me seriously, I needed to prove I was indispensable, not just to Clara or Mr. Hargrove, but to the entire restaurant chain. I thought about the inefficiencies I'd noticed over the years, the outdated scheduling system that left us overstaffed on slow days and shorthanded during rushes, the menu items that sat unsold because they didn't suit our clientele, the lack of training that made new servers flounder. I'd mentioned these to Clara before, only to be brushed off. Now, I'd turn those observations into a weapon. My plan was simple but bold. I'd compile a proposal, a detailed report outlining improvements that could save the restaurant money and boost customer satisfaction. I'd present it to the regional manager when they reviewed my application. It wasn't just about getting the promotion, it was about showing Clara, Mr. Hargrove, and everyone else that I wasn't just a waitress. I was someone with vision, someone who could lead. The thought of standing in front of them, my ideas laid bare, sent a thrill through me, equal parts excitement and fear. This was my revenge, not loud or vicious, but calculated. A way to reclaim my worth in a language they couldn't ignore. I spent my evenings researching, poring over industry blogs and restaurant management forums. I taught myself about profit margins, customer retention, and staff morale, terms that felt foreign but empowering. I jotted down numbers, how much we lost on wasted inventory, how a streamlined menu could cut costs by 15%. I even sketched out a new training program, one that would have helped me when I started. Each page I filled felt like a brick in a wall I was building around myself. A defense against the doubt that still whispered I wasn't enough. But Clara was a shadow over my plan. I caught her watching me during shifts, her eyes narrowing when I lingered too long talking to coworkers or jotting notes. Did she suspect something? That unanswered text felt like a ticking bomb. I knew I'd have to face her eventually. Maybe she'd confront me before I was ready, or maybe the regional office would call us both in when my application landed. The thought made my palms sweat. What if my proposal wasn't enough? What if they laughed again, this time at my ambition? I pushed the fear aside, focusing on the next step. I'd overheard Mr. Hargrove mention a regional meeting next month, a chance for managers to present ideas to the higher-ups. If I could get my proposal in front of them there, it could change everything. But that meant perfecting every detail, anticipating every objection, and preparing for Clara's reaction. I wasn't just fighting for a promotion, I was fighting for the right to be seen. Will I feel victorious when it's over? Or will the consequences leave me feeling empty? The regional meeting was a week away, and my proposal was nearly complete. 20 pages of carefully researched ideas, charts, and cost analyses sat printed and bound in a folder on my kitchen table, a testament to weeks of late nights and stolen moments. I'd titled it, "A Vision for Efficiency, Elevating Our Restaurant's Future." Every word felt like a declaration, a refusal to be dismissed. But as the meeting loomed, the reality of what I was about to do settled over me like a storm cloud. This wasn't just about presenting a proposal, it was about confronting Clara, Mr. Hargrove, and every doubt they'd planted in me. The restaurant was buzzing that morning. A rare all-staff meeting called by the regional manager, Ms. Ellison. I'd heard she was tough but fair, someone who valued results over titles. That gave me hope. I'd emailed her my application and proposal 2 days earlier, requesting a chance to present at the meeting. To my shock, she'd agreed, asking me to prepare a 10-minute pitch. 10 minutes to change my life. I clutched the folder as I walked into the restaurant, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my apron. Clara was already there, standing near Mr. Hargrove, her arms crossed and her smile tight. She hadn't spoken to me in days, not since I'd ignored her texts. When our eyes met, hers flickered with something confusion, maybe suspicion. I forced myself to nod, keeping my expression neutral. Inside, I was a mess of nerves and resolve. This was it. No turning back. Ms. Ellison called the meeting to order, and the room filled with the hum of anticipation. Managers from other locations presented first, their voices confident as they discussed sales targets and marketing plans. I barely heard them, my focus on the folder in my lap, my rehearsed words running through my head. When Ms. Ellison called my name, the room went quiet. I felt every eye on me, including Clara's, sharp and unreadable. I stood, smoothing my apron, as if it could steady me. "My name is Margaret Wilson," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I've been a server here for 3 years, and I believe I can help this restaurant thrive." I walked them through my proposal: a streamlined scheduling system to cut labor costs, a revised menu based on customer data, a training program to boost staff retention. I cited numbers, projected savings, and even shared a story of a customer who'd returned because of my personal touch. The room was silent, but I could feel the weight of their attention. When I finished, Ms. Ellison nodded thoughtfully. "Impressive, Margaret. You've clearly put a lot of thought into this." I exhaled, relief flooding me. But then Clara stood up. "Margaret's ideas are ambitious," she said, her tone smooth but edged. "But as assistant manager, I can tell you we've tried similar things before. They don't always work in practice." Her words were a knife, subtle but sharp, undermining me in front of everyone. I felt the old urge to shrink, to let her words bury me, but I didn't. "With respect, Clara," I said, my voice calm but firm, "those ideas were never fully implemented. I've outlined how we can make them work, with measurable results." The room stirred, a murmur of surprise. Clara's smile faltered. Just for a moment, Ms. Ellison raised a hand. "We'll review your proposal, Margaret, thank you." I sat down, my hands trembling but my head high. I'd done it. I'd faced them, spoken my truth. But as Clara's eyes met mine, cold and unyielding, I wondered if this victory would feel as sweet as I'd hoped or if it would unravel something I wasn't ready to face. Will I feel relieved after this, or will it leave me questioning everything? The meeting room emptied, but the weight of what I'd done lingered like a fog. I'd stood up to Clara, presented my proposal, and held my ground in front of Ms. Ellison and the entire staff. Yet, as I walked back to my apartment, the folder tucked under my arm, I didn't feel the triumph I'd expected. Instead, there was a hollowness, a gnawing question. Had this confrontation really changed anything? Clara's words, "They don't always work in practice," replayed in my mind. Her subtle dismissal cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. I'd fought for my voice, but the victory felt fragile, like it could slip through my fingers. That night, I sat on my couch, the proposal spread out before me. I traced the pages, each one a piece of my heart poured onto paper. I'd expected to feel empowered, validated, but instead, I felt exposed. What if Ms. Ellison dismissed my ideas? What if Clara was right, and I'd overreached? I thought about our childhood, how Clara had always been the one to shine while I cheered from the sidelines. Her betrayal wasn't new, it was a pattern, one I'd ignored for years. The realization hit me hard. Revenge wasn't about proving her wrong, it was about proving myself right. But had I avoided the restaurant for the next few days, calling in sick to give myself space? Clara didn't text, and I didn't reach out. The silence between us felt like a chasm, one I wasn't sure I wanted to cross. I spent hours replaying the meeting, wondering if I'd been too bold, too confrontational. The hollowness grew, mingling with anger at Clara, at Mr. Hargrove, at myself for letting their words define me for so long. I wanted closure, but this didn't feel like it. It felt like the start of something messier, something I hadn't anticipated. Has revenge really brought me peace, or is there more healing to be done? A week later, I got an email from Ms. Ellison. My proposal had been approved for a trial run, and I was being considered for the assistant manager position. The words blurred on the screen as tears welled up, not just from relief, but from the realization that I'd done this. Me, Margaret Wilson, the just a waitress who'd dared to dream bigger. But the email also came with a request. A follow-up meeting with Ms. Ellison, Mr. Hargrove, and Clara to discuss implementation. The thought of facing Clara again made my stomach twist, but this time, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. The meeting was tense. Clara sat across from me, her expression unreadable, while Mr. Hargrove fidgeted with his pen. Ms. Ellison took the lead, praising my initiative and outlining how my ideas would be tested. I nodded, keeping my focus on her, but I could feel Clara's eyes on me. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "I didn't realize you had this in you, Mags," she said. "I'm proud of you." The words caught me off guard, and for a moment, I saw the sister I'd loved, not the one who'd laughed at me. But I wasn't ready to forgive not yet. After the meeting, I walked home, the city lights reflecting off the pavement. I thought about Clara's words, about the years I'd spent in her shadow. Her apology, if it was one, didn't erase the hurt, but it shifted something in me. I didn't need her validation anymore. I didn't need anyone's. The proposal, the promotion, the confrontation, they weren't about proving myself to them, they were about proving myself to me. For the first time, I felt the weight of my own worth, not as a waitress or a sister, but as Margaret. Whole and enough. Am I ready to move forward, or is there still something I need to let go of? 3 months later, I stood in the restaurant's back office, my new assistant manager badge pinned to my blazer. The trial run of my proposal had been a success. Sales were up, staff turnover was down, and customers were leaving glowing reviews. Ms. Ellison had even mentioned expanding my ideas to other locations. But the real victory wasn't in the numbers, or the title. It was in the way I carried myself. The way I no longer flinched at Clara's voice or doubted my own. Then came the call that changed everything. A journalist from Forbes had dined at the restaurant, noticed the changes, and traced them back to me. They wanted to feature me in an article about innovative leadership in the service industry. Me, Margaret Wilson, in Forbes. When I told Clara, her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw something like awe. "You did this, Mags," she said, and this time, I believed she meant it. I didn't need her awe, though. I'd spent so long chasing approval. Hers, Mr. Hargrove's. Anyone's that I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand on my own. The article was published a month later, my name in print alongside words like visionary and trailblazer. I framed it, not for vanity, but as a reminder of what I could do when I stopped letting others define me. Clara and I were slowly rebuilding. We weren't the sisters we'd been as kids, but we were finding a new way forward, one built on honesty. Instead of shadows, I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Standing in the restaurant now, watching the staff I'd trained thrive, I felt a quiet calm settle over me. The scars were still there, but they no longer hurt. They were part of my story, not the end of it. I was free from the past, free from doubt, free to build a future on my own terms. As I locked up the restaurant that night, the city humming around me, I smiled. I was Margaret Wilson, and I was enough.